The first word from this week's xa'isla homework is qulun. So we start off with the first letter, which is Q. Q comes from around the back of your throat. It's called a uvular sound. That's because this here is called your uvula. So hopefully you remember that from last week's lesson. So Q basically makes a k sound. The next letter is a U. U comes from around the same area towards the back of your throat, up closer to the roof of your mouth. So the U in this position, this is a regular U, and it makes an oo sound. Oo. The next letter is an L. So L is what's called a lateral sound. So if you imagine this is your tongue, here's the tip of your tongue coming up. So this part here, this is called the alveolar ridge. So these are your teeth here. So coming back here, this little bump, that's your alveolar ridge. So you're placing the tip of your tongue against your alveolar ridge, and you're putting the air out. So the air is coming out through your mouth, and it's also coming out through your nose a little bit as well. So that makes the O sound of the L. Next we have another U, but this one's a little bit different than the first U. This U actually makes more of an O sound. So O comes from a little bit further down, further back in your mouth. So this U sounds like O. The last letter is N, and this is an alveolar sound, so much like the L. We have our tongue coming up, the tip of our tongue, coming up against the alveolar ridge. And when you make the sound, your tongue is blocking off air. Air can't come out this way, so it has to come out through your nasal passage, and then it comes out through your nose. That is what makes the sound. Now we're going to do a linguistic breakdown of qulun. So I'm going to write it out here. So we have a Q, we have a U, an L, another U, and an N. We also have a very small slanted line over top of the second U. So the first thing I'm going to do is separate them into two separate syllables. Looking at each letter, what we have here to start with is a Q. So Q is what's known as a back sound or a uvular sound. And then we have a U, which in this case makes an O sound. This is different than what a regular U would sound like. And I'll get to that in a minute. We have a L, like the L in lily in English. We have another U. So there's two things different about this U. First of all, it has an accent mark over top of it. So we have an acute accent, which tells us that we're going to put more emphasis on this last syllable here. So this will be a higher tone. So when we pronounce this word, we say the first syllable with less emphasis than the second one. So the second syllable is going to be a higher tone. So we say qulun, qulun. So that's what the accent tells us, to say this last syllable with more emphasis than the first one. The second thing that's different about this second U is that it sounds like ooh. So the difference between these two letter U's is the letter that comes before it. So with the second U, the L is kind of like a regular consonant. An L will not change the sound of a U or any other letter. So the U will take on its natural sound, which is ooh. As I mentioned before, in this case, with the first U, it sounds different because of this Q. Q is a back sound, changes the sound of this U from an ooh sound to an O sound. So you put them together, you have qulun, qulun, qulun.